Assalamualaikum and a very good day I bid to lecturers, Madam Fitriah and Madam Khadijah if you are watching, and of course my fellow friends. So here we are finally here at the last presenters of our subject. So today my friends and I will explain to you about our topic, which is Ppsmi. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. My name is Nurul Nabila binti Jumali and I am the first presenter of this group. So I will explain to you guys about what exactly is Ppsmi, and I will also explain to you guys as simple as I can about the history of Ppsmi. So what is Ppsmi? Ppsmi is a short form stand for Pengajaran dan Pembelajaran Sains dan Matematik dalam Bahasa Inggeris, or in English we call it as Ppsmi. Ppsmi is a short form for teaching mathematics and science by using English language. So let me bring you guys back in 1990s. So back in the year of 1990, our education system were held fully in Malay. So that means the teaching and learning session also held in Malay. For example, for science they call it as ilmu alam, and for mathematics they call it as ilmu hisab. So entering the 2000 era, the government, the Ministry of Education want to make change in our education system. Therefore, they developed Ppsmi. Ppsmi is one of the dasar made by Ministry of Education in order to enhance or empowerment, encourage empowerment of English among school students in Malaysia. These Ppsmi were developed back in 2002, but it was implemented in both level primary and secondary schools in Malaysia in the year of 2003 until 2009. These Ppsmi was implemented stage by stage, so it was fully covered in both level primary and secondary level in 2007 and 2008. So why exactly the government want to implement Ppsmi among school students in Malaysia? So there are several reasons for it. Firstly is because Ppsmi is one of the better opportunity for school students in Malaysia to improve their English language. As we all know, back in 2000 and even until now 2020, English is the most spoken language in the world. So therefore the government believe if students learning English in both science and mathematics, it will somehow improve their English skills language, and it will also improve their communication skills, and it will somehow become useful in the future. Next is tertiary level use English. So in Malaysia, the science and mathematics term were used in English in the tertiary level. Tertiary level means here is the university level. So after the students finish their secondary schools, they will enter tertiary level. So the government believe if students were introduced first in their schools session, it will not have problem if they are learning mathematics and science in English in their tertiary level. Next reason is science and mathematics were used worldwide in English. So not just in Malaysia, but the term used in science and mathematics, some of the terms used in science and mathematics were used worldwide in English. For example, simple chemistry term like Na. Na is stand for natrium in Malay, but in English the Na stand for sodium. So for example, NaCl. NaCl is the chemistry term for salt. NaCl. So NaCl in Malay we call it as natrium chloride, but in English they call it as sodium chloride. So it somehow become confusing among people, the term in English and Malay. So the government also believe if students learning science and mathematics in English during their school level, so it will not have problem for them to entering science and mathematics area in tertiary level and also their job level. So let's continue with the history of Ppsmi. So on 19th of July 2002, the Ministry of Education finally approved Ppsmi to be implemented to all schools in Malaysia. So Ministry of Education held several meetings in order to come up with an idea to improve education system in Malaysia. So finally in the year of 2002, they approved Ppsmi as one of the dasar in the Ministry of Education. Next is the next day, 20th of July 2002, the Ministry of Education made an official announcement about Ppsmi. So a year later, in the year of 2003, Ppsmi were implemented to all schools in Malaysia stage by stage. Stage by stage means by here is firstly they changed the textbook from all Malay textbook to English textbook for science and mathematics subjects. Next is teaching and learning session. From all Malay teaching and learning session, they changed some school still have conversation in Malay, but the term used in both science and mathematics subjects were fully in English. Next is examination paper. Examination paper for main examination such as SPM, PMR and UPSR were prepared in both language, which is English language and English question and Malay questions. Next, in the year of 2007, Ppsmi were finally implemented fully in primary school, which means students from year 1 until year 6 were learning science and mathematics fully in English. Next is 2008, followed by 2008, Ppsmi were finally implemented fully in secondary school, which means students from Form 1 until Form 5 finally use English for learning science and mathematics. But in September 2008, there were several issues arise about Ppsmi. Firstly, actually in the year of 2002, there are some educators believe that Ppsmi should not be implemented because they think that students will neglect Bahasa Malaysia as the main language in Malaysia when they are learning science and mathematics in English. They also believe that if students want to excel in science and mathematics, they still can excel it without learning it in English. That means that if students learning it in Malay, they still can success in that area. Other than that, other issues arise is because of poor performance based on the result of students in their examination SPM, PMR and UPSR when Ppsmi were implemented, especially students in the rural area. They did not familiar with the English language, and some of them were not fluent in it, so they make poor performance in the examination, not because they don't understand the not because they don't understand mathematics and science, but because of the language used by the government for that subject, so they cannot fully understand, and because of that they perform poorly in their examinations. So because of that main issues, in the year of 2009, Ppsmi were finally shut down and changed into MBI. So MBI stand for mempertabatkan bahasa Melayu and memperkukuh bahasa Inggeris. So with MBM and MBI, the schools can choose, then they can have several alternatives to have teaching and learning session, either fully in Malay or fully in English, or they can choose both, teaching in Malay and teaching in English. So that's all from me. Let's continue this presentation with the next presenter, Nurul Azila.
Welcome and very good morning to all my classmates and madam. I will proceed to objective of Ppsmi and why to implement the Ppsmi at school. The first objective is achieving the standard of developed country. The government wants to achieve advanced state status and following the era of globalization. The governments actually want to ensure that our country equal or same level with other countries. That's why the Ppsmi is created and implemented in education system. Bak kata pepatah Melayu, berdiri sama tinggi, duduk sama rendah. The government is actually want to mencapai keadaan yang sama taraf dengan negara-negara lain. That's why the Ppsmi is created in the school level. Move to the second objective. The second objective is preparations and early preparation to compete in the era of globalizations. This is the government ways to be prepared to compete in the era of globalizations. I mean in the new era of globalizations. As we can see, mostly we are use English in classroom, studies, workplace and university. The government implement the Ppsmi as an early or initial preparation for the future for the students. That's why the government implement Ppsmi at the school level. It is for the better preparation to compete in the new era of globalization. The third objective is mastery in the English language. We all know that the science and mathematics is an area that is a fundamental or basic and plays an important role in development of countries. Nowadays, as we can see, the various innovation and new discoveries is happen rapidly, and information access is mostly in English language. That's why the governments created and implement the Ppsmi at the school. It is to make sure our students is tough enough in English language before they enter the next level of educations or workplace. The fourth objective is international relations. English is the language of international relations. Obviously, English language is the language spoken internationally, and mastery in this language will allow easiness to get information, interaction and communications. The government wants to develop the use of English language among the students to be prepared in the new era of globalization. Okay, all the four objectives, which is achieve, preparation, mastery, and international relation, is created or planned by the governments to make sure the student use the English language as their daily or second language. It is to make sure that they are adapt with the English language for better preparations to enter the university level or workplace. Why PPSMI need to implement? Okay, the first is to practice the use of English language among students. It is because mostly we are using English language in classroom, studies, university and workplace. The PPSMI starting on 2003, and at that time the English language is mostly used in the classroom, studies, university and workplace. That's why the government implement PPSMI to make the student have an early preparations for to enter the next level of education. Students need to get used the English language starting from the school level, because we don't want when they enter the university or the workplace they will get shocked or surprising, because mostly we are using English language. Okay, it will enable them to master the English language at that time. That's why we need to make sure the students starting use the English language start from the school level. Sebab apabila mereka masuk ke universiti or alam pekerjaan, mereka takkan terkejut ataupun kekok dengan penggunaan bahasa Inggeris. That's why PPSMI is implement at the school. Okay, the second is the preparation for university and employment. Nowadays, at the university level, we are using English language in teaching and learning session. Also in a workplace. As we can see in the interview, even SPA, we are using English when we are having interview session. That's why we need to start using the English language starting from the school level. The third one is easy to students to work and study abroad. For sure, in the workplace, we are using English language in the meeting, when we are meeting the clients and with the workmate. And obviously, when we are study abroad, we are using English as our main language. In case if, for example, if we are study at China and then we can talk in Mandarin or we can speak in Mandarin, it is a bonus for us. Majority we are use English language as a main language when we are study. Okay, majority we are using English language when we are study abroad or outside Malaysia. Okay, the fourth one is improve knowledge and mastery in science and technology applications. Okay, science and technology application is a broad area in development of country. When we are able to speak or use English language, we are easy to get information or to explore more in science and technology, because mostly in science and technology application we are using English. For example, at the website or blog, to access or get the information, majority the information is in English. Okay, basically in science and technology applications, they are using English to deliver the information. Okay, the last point is PPSMI is implement to give a broad chance to the students to have an ability to communicate in a two language. Okay, the PPSMI actually have been created to produce the students with the ability to communicate in two language at least. Basically, the PPSMI is to improve and mastery the use of English language. They are stressed on in science and mathematics because the area is very wide and broad, and this is the basic things in development of the country. That's the 5 point why PPSMI is need to be implemented at the school level. Okay, that's all from me. I will pass to the third presenter.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. First of all, my name is Muhammad Fikri Azim as a third presenter, and in this video, I will be presenting about the advantages, disadvantages, and also the implication of PPSMI. Okay, so without further ado, let's proceed to the advantages of PPSMI. Okay, so the first point for the advantages of PPSMI is students be more prepared for their future. Okay, it means that through the implementation of PPSMI, it helps students to be more ready for continuing their study in higher education and also when they are working in the future. So it is because when students can learn or work and doing their work by communicate or interact in English with others effectively, for sure they can feel more comfortable and help them to feel less nervous when they are doing their works and also when they are communicate with their friends. And also, if the student can talk, read and write in English, for sure their chance to get the position when they are going to the interview more higher compared to someone who doesn't have that kind of abilities. Okay, so let's move on to the second point, which is assist students to realize the importance of English language. So as we know, nowadays it is important for students to have at least a basic knowledge on English. This is because it will help students to understand their learning more easier and also to prevent them from misunderstanding their content, especially towards the science and mathematics terms. And also with the implementation of PPSMI, it will help students to learn on these three subjects, which are science, mathematics and English, at the higher level, which is can help them to recognize the importance of English for sure, in which can help them to recognize the importance of English and also can be something useful for them in the future. Okay, so for the third point is help to produce highly competitive students. Okay, so it is proven that our country have produced a lot of high achiever students, especially on science, mathematics and English subjects. So this indirectly leads to create a high competition among the students. And also through the PPSMI, it helps students to gain a valuable knowledge about the science and mathematics by using English as an intermediate language. And for the students who have higher abilities in English, for sure the academic performance on subject that using English will be increased and will affect on their grades. Okay, so that's for the number 3. Then for the number 4 point is had to produce more caliber workers in future. Is because through PSMI it helps or assists students to develop their potential to the maximum, and this will create students become more caliber worker in the future, since they have the good knowledge and quality within themselves, which is their quality of work at the same level with the overseas workers. So as for me, I think this will be a good asset and also a good advantages for our country in the future indeed. Okay, then let's move on to the disadvantages of PPSMI. Okay, for the number 1 is does not help to solve the problem for students with English proficiency. Okay, This is because the problem exists is actually related to the English language itself. Okay, that means the teaching and learning method are not appropriate and are clear for the student, where then don't understand the instruction given by the student, and also then don't get the clearer image on what they are studying. And also the tradition phase to convert bahasa Melayu to the English language need to be implemented in a long time, or it means require a lot of time to be implemented, because not all students have the same abilities or same intelligence in their study. Okay, so for the number 2 is some science and mathematics teacher cannot talk and teach in English efficiently. Okay, so as we know, for the science and mathematics teacher, for sure they are expert in their field, which is they can deliver their content, the knowledge to the student successfully. But when it involves the using the English language in their learning or teaching process, for sure it might give a problem to the teacher, and it similar goes to the pepatah Melayu, which is yang dikejar tak dapat, yang dikendong berciciran. That means the English or proficiency among the student are not increased, as well as the student understanding on science and mathematics due to the language barrier. Okay, so that's for number 2. Then for the number 3 is it hard for students to understand the content in English, especially for students in rural area. Okay, based on the previous research by the University Pendidikan Sultan Idris on 2008, they found that more than 80% of students say that their science and mathematics teacher are using to communication use a communication of two language, which are Bahasa Melayu and English, during their learning process. And also more than 70% of students said that they are not understand or less understand towards the mathematics subject, while for the science subject more than 80% of students not understand the content, because they don't really familiar with English language. So overall, this result shows that most of the students, especially in student in the rural area, cannot get a better understanding on science and mathematics subject due to the Ppsmi implementation. Okay, so for the number 4 is it cannot produce critical thinking student. This is because the student performance in science and mathematics examination is still at the low level since the implementation of Ppsmi. So and also especially the student cannot answer this question that related to the that needs student to read the instruction in English and how to solve the problem. So this shows that the student cannot understand the question given and how they want to answer that question. So that might kill the student thinking on their, or also their understanding toward that subject. So I think this PPSI, so I think this advantages of PPSMI might give a negative effect for the student development in their studies. Okay, now let's proceed to the implication of Ppsmi. So the implication of Ppsmi is divided into two components, which are positive and negative. So now let's talk about the positive implication of Ppsmi first. Okay, so for the first point is expose students to a future that is prone to the era of globalization. Okay, so the usage of English language in science and mathematics can bring a positive outcome for the student if they go to the overseas for continuous study or working in the future. And also at the international level, the English language is used as an intermediate language to communicate and interact to others, so it might be the added value for the student. And also the impact of PPSMI should be focused on the long-term effect, which is provide some benefit for student in future use. So this PPSMI in some way can give a lot of good benefit for the student. And let's proceed to the second point, which is giving student the opportunity to learn English more easily. So could you imagine that if the PPSMI has been terminated, so the student cannot get the chance to study English in a various way, because the time given to teach English subject is limited, and even though most of the information on the internet and other platform mostly in English, so this if this aspect is ignored, the probability for our next generation to be left behind is higher, because they cannot cope and adapt with the changes with the changes that are surrounding them, because they cannot use the English language efficiently or proficiently. Okay, so let's move on to the third one, which is provide students with the opportunity to strengthen their foundation for information in science and mathematics. But before that, according to the Dr. Mahdi in 2009, science and mathematics is a very dynamic field of education with many innovation and discoveries taking place almost daily through research and development. Okay, so that's why this field is fundamental for progression and development of some countries. And also most of the latest information on science and technology is written and delivered in English. Okay, so therefore this early exposure to science and mathematics in English will give opportunity for the student to improve their English proficiency from time to time with the guidance from the teacher. Okay, so that's all for the positive implication of PPSMI. Okay, now let's move on to the negative implication of PPSMI. Okay, for the number one is impacting the gap between students in urban and rural areas. Okay, based on the Muhammad Sabri, Muhammad Arshad as a president for Kesatuan Guru-Guru Melayu Malaysia Barat, he said that majority of students in rural areas they using Bahasa Melayu, and this create a huge gap between urban and rural area students, because students in urban areas readily can already can speak or write in English efficiently. Okay, so based on my observation, to reduce the gap, one of the way is place a good teacher with high English proficiency level at school in rural area as much as possible, because this can help the student to learn a good English from the caliber's teacher. Okay, so let's proceed to the number two, which is causing the spirit of unity among the races to be destroyed. Okay, this is because most of the students in the school like to speak in Bahasa Melayu, but if we implement this PPSMI, students will tend to speak in English, especially among themselves, and this will create or causing the spirit of unity among the races to be destroyed. For example, Chinese student will talk in English with their friend, and while the Malay student can understand that, and it might lead to the misunderstanding among them. Okay, so for the number three, if it give a negative impact on Bahasa Melayu. Okay, this can be seen when Bahasa Melayu that was once used as the intermediate language in all schools now have been ignored, and all the teacher and student more emphasize on English language. So that means that students more rely on English language to succeed in their learning, because it what our government has said. Okay, so because of that, we should take a lesson from other countries that maintain their language as a main language, such as Russia, Japan, has emerged as a great power without ignoring their language. So I think better we stick to the Bahasa Melayu for student learning and teaching. Okay, so let's proceed to the number 4, which is influence the quality of student exam. Okay, based on a previous examination result, using the Bahasa Melayu as an intermediate language, the performance of the student is quite impressive. But then, with the implementation of Ppsmi, the examination result of the student has been decreased. So it means that the implementation of Ppsmi is not a succeed. So that's why I think it's better to stick to the Bahasa Melayu instead of using Bahasa English for the science and mathematics subject. Okay, so that's all from me. Now I will pass to the fourth presenter. That's all. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all my fellow friends and my beloved lecturers, Miss Fitriah and Dr. Khadijah. My name is Siti Nurkhanita and I am the last presenter. I will take part with the challenge in Ppsmi and improvement of Ppsmi. Before I proceed with my point, let me explain first about what is challenge. Challenge means something or thing that tests the ability and persistence of an individual or organization. Alright, let's move to my point. The first point in challenge in Ppsmi is students' proficiency in Bahasa Melayu is still slow. According to Sinar Harian on 2nd February 2020, Dato' A. Aziz Deraman said, the findings and conclusion of the study when implementing Ppsmi for the first time have proven the negative effect. He said this was due to the deterioration in achievement with the large number of students failing to master these two important subjects. He also said that proficiency of Bahasa Melayu among students still low, especially in rural areas. So, how the students want to learn their PNP in English while their Bahasa Melayu is still poor? The second point is Ppsmi get opposition from majority of people and scholars. Most scholars, including Professor Engku Aziz, including the literary and cultural groups, expressed their opposition to Ppsmi policy. This included all the surviving state artists, among them A. Samad Said, Professor Muhammad Haji Saleh, and Anwar Ridwan, unanimously declared their stand against the Ppsmi policy. They expressed their opposition in a joint statement at a press conference on 5th May 2019. One of the reasons given is Malaysia should emulate the education system of Scandinavian countries, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Switzerland, whose citizens can speak English without ignoring their mother tongue. Next challenge in Ppsmi is Ppsmi give pressure on teachers. Ppsmi, especially in rural areas, requires teacher preparation to accept and implement it seriously. Mostly experienced teachers, especially those already have family, are reluctant to serve in rural areas. Unfortunately, new teachers are less experienced and less aware of student circumstances. Therefore, the implementation of Ppsmi requires highly trained and capable teachers to meet this challenge. Other than that, Before the implementation of Ppsmi, the science and mathematics teachers use Bahasa Melayu in PNP. In this case, teachers who are not fluent in English have become a problem for their students. Implementation of Ppsmi is one of their biggest challenges, especially for teachers who are not proficient in English. The last challenge in Ppsmi is education differ between rural and urban areas. In rural areas, there are lack of facilities and infrastructure, transportation problems, school distance issue from home, problem with family separation, and so on. Mostly, the new teachers are less experienced and students in rural areas depend too much on teacher. Okay, now I proceed with improvement of Ppsmi. The first one is make program memartabatkan bahasa Melayu dan memperkukuhkan penguasaan bahasa Inggeris, or as known as MBM or MBI, is basis of education and should be implemented. The main purpose of memartabatkan bahasa Melayu is because bahasa Melayu is a national language that is a tool of unity, the language of communication, and the language of knowledge towards building a nation to achieve one satu Malaysia. While the main purpose of memperkukuh bahasa Inggeris is an international language of communication that needs to be mastered well and effectively to enable the exploration of various disciplines to compete nationally and globally. The second improvement in Ppsmi is teachers need to be up to date with the needs of globalization. Omar Hashim, 1991, argues that teachers should have some skills with the needs of this era of globalization, and one of them is the ability to use electronic media such as projectors, computers, the internet, and so on has become a necessity and is an important tool for ensuring quality and more effective teaching. The third improvement in Ppsmi is not forget the dual language program, DLP. The dual language program is a program introduced under the foundation of MBM, MBI. The DLP was first implemented in 2016 at selected schools. As such, researchers had conducted a study to evaluate the implementation of the DLP for science and mathematics, which has been used in secondary school based on the CIPP model from the aspect of context, input, process, and product. The first objective of this research is to identify the level of context, input, process, and product dimension of DLP. The second objective is to identify the relationship among the level of CIPP dimension during the implementation of the DLP with the teachers' teaching experience. The third objective is to identify the advantages, weaknesses, challenges, and suggestions by science and mathematics teachers in realizing the DLP. Lastly, improvement in Ppsmi is ETEMS, courses for teachers. ETEMS stands for English for Teaching Mathematics and Science. This ETEMS course is to enhance teachers' English proficiency. So, learning in science and mathematics subject can be well conveyed and understood by students. This course is also to assess a teacher's English proficiency level. So, through this course, teachers will be able to reinforce the English language used in learning. I think that's all from me. Thank you.